All right. Hello, Denimheads, and welcome to the Sons of Selvedge Podcast, where a group of friends get together to discuss denim, menswear, and related interests. Our podcast aims to be fun and inclusive, where you feel like you're hanging out with longtime friends. But be warned, we have a bit of cutting up banter and explicit language. This is episode 35 today. We'll be talking about engineer boots in a very discussion, informal manner. So, definitely not going to be a definitive guide on the subject, just sharing our opinions. And of course, please follow us wherever you listen to our content. So YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or Google. Also follow us on Instagram. We're pretty much everywhere @ Sons of Selvedge Podcast. So maybe let's jump into a round of intros and what we're wearing today. Andy, would you like to kick it off?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Today I am wearing Black Horse Lane Atelier NW1s, which is my latest acquisition to replace my Studio D'Artisan charcoal wefts that I've just got to a point that the fit is too slim for me now. So I decided to go for a more traditional taper, which has been great so far, in a nice 14-ounce collect denim. That's had I've given it a couple of washes quite quickly because Illya, when I bought them, he warned me that there is some shrinkage in a length, and actually I found giving them a 40 wash has kind of brought the waist in slightly as well, because they were a bit loose at first. Otherwise, I am wearing a can't really see it, but I've got a brand new from my kid for Father's Day. I got a brand new T-shirt from Sons, which is just a stripy number, which is quite nice, little slubby fabric. And then because it's a little bit chilly now, I've got my 316 hoodie on.
And what's the cut on the NW1s?
They call it a relax. I think it's a relaxed straight, but it's more like a taper, similar to what, say, Oni would refer to as a straight cut, or maybe like Uus with their 400T, but it's looser. It's got more room than those in the thigh, and then it goes down to like an 8.5 inch kind of hem. So nothing too extreme on the taper. I'm not going to spend 5 minutes trying to take them off and getting them stuck around my ankles. And I can wear boots with a higher shaft on them with them.
Something like an engineer boot.
Yes. Awesome. I have done it.
Yeah, I like that shirt as well, especially if you fall off the island into the Atlantic.
Everyone thinks I'm a sailor.
They'll be able to find you. All right, Illya, what you wearing today?
So I've just got a Rena McCoy's T-shirt and some Black Horse Lane jeans as well. I'm wearing the SE1 linen cotton blend today. It was a little bit warmer today, so I threw those on. And that's about it for me.
Nice. Yeah, I actually just changed back into my clothes because I was eating some leftover Szechuan food right before we called, and it's like this chili soup that's like blood red because there's like so much chili oil and stuff. So I was like, I'm gonna strip down to my skivvies, eat my lunch, and then put my clothes back on after, just so I don't have to worry about like getting oil stains on stuff. And sure enough, I got oil stains all over my undershirt. So that sucker's going in the wash. But now that I'm clothed again, I'm wearing Free Note cloth. It's called their modern Western shirt. Just kind of like simple like curvatures, and then like the pocket's kind of like a simple curved pocket. And it's like a indigo warp gray weft. I think they call it like their midnight selvage.
Nice.
And I'm also wearing some Free Note jeans as well. They're ecru. I guess they call it their regular straight, the Belford cut. So trying to get some of that kind of reverse patina on it. But yeah, I definitely these days feel like I've become a bit of a Free Note whore. It seems like the brand I'm wearing the most at the moment.
Why do you think that is? David?
Couple things. I think it's cut well for tall people. So like sleeve length, just sort of generally speaking, the fit. It's like I know off the shelf it's gonna work well for me with my monkey arms, and they're kind of like a bit of a regular cut for most of their shirts, but like not like too boxy and also not slim either. So kind of somewhere in the middle. It's like a nice happy medium. Maybe a bit like UES, but with like more room. And I like their jeans too. Both the fabrics and the fits are pretty good too. Like all their jeans that I have from them have either like 11 and a half or 12-inch front rise, like 15, 16-inch back rise, and like pretty loose in the thigh and hip and stuff. So yeah, I guess it's pretty comfortable. And then I'm a bit of a junkie for their patterns, like around their westerns. And at some point, I might actually be able to get Andrew from one of the two brothers that owns it on the podcast to talk about their shirt designs. But I got to follow up with them and see if that is still going to happen or not.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. So maybe on to current interests. What are you up to or interested in at the moment, Andy?
So my big one is I've been with my 4-year-old son going through the Showa era Godzilla movies. So that is the first 15. So from like 1954 through to 1975, something like that. So Criterion put out a big box set a few years ago, and it always sells out, and they started to sell it in the UK. And I think I was kind of watching it for a while, and it's always out of stock, and it came in stock on like HMV's online on their webpage, and so I took the plunge, and it's great. It's really interesting though, the kind of when it was originally released, it came in a massive box set, like kind of like that, with a book with it. But this version, it is a big book. It's like an A3 size book, which has got loads of it's got like mini essays about each film, kind of going through like the kind of the background of the production and reasons for how they did certain things. And then at the back, all the discs are arranged, so it's like an 8-disc set. We are on disc 6 now, so I think we've got 3 films left. He's loved it. He has absolutely loved watching them. We've had to sit there, sometimes we've had to pause it and explain to him, no one's getting hurt, and everything you're seeing is it's a dudes in rubber suits throwing themselves around sets, and he's really got into it, and it's been great. I just hope they decide to do it with the later eras, that kind of, because they make Godzilla films in Japan, they're still doing it, and there's like a huge kind of chunk that I haven't got, and is very hard to get hold of. There's like pretty much no one really selling them unless you're going through bootlegs. So I'm just kind of hoping that Criterion do box sets for the next ones. Yeah, I mean they're pricey, but it's been well worth the price to kind of sit down and watch them with him and go through it all.
Have you seen that TV series Monarch?
No, I don't have Apple. TV,
right.
so
if you get it, it was fantastic. Mm-hmm. It's like, obviously it's all set in the context of Godzilla. So like he's like running around. I think he like destroys San Francisco and then disappears, and like at the beginning of the show. And so the whole show is kind of like this sort of science fiction mystery detective-y story, but with the context of like Godzilla's running around causing trouble, and other monsters like Mothra or whatever are there. It's pretty cool and very unexpected. Like it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be when I saw the ad for it.
That's cool. I've got Godzilla -1 downloaded to watch off Netflix. Because I want to watch that before I see to check if it's suitable for him. Though he keeps asking about Shin Godzilla from like 10 years ago, because he's seen it in like on YouTube, like monster size comparison videos and stuff. And I had a kind of a bit of a dig into it, and I'm like, yeah, you're not watching that one. That is basically about Godzilla being a gigantic tumor going around in agony. I'm like, yeah, you're not watching that one, mate. That is going to be too difficult to explain.
Well, that's so nice you're having the time to bond with him about something like that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because there's I've seen clips from some of them, and some of them I saw when I was younger. So it's like quite cool revisiting them and looking at them from the eye of a a grouchy bloke in his late 30s, as opposed to being like an 8-year-old being like, this is the best thing ever. So
As
yeah,
someone who's never watched Godzilla, like where would you start?
I would go. I'd either say go right to the beginning and go for the original 1954 Godzilla, where it's just him as a force of nature, and it's kind of got the nuclear testing allegories and stuff in there. I haven't watched any of the new ones, so I can't really judge. I've heard Godzilla -1 is meant to be very much in that kind of vein, so that'd probably be one that I think most people will probably touch first, unless they touch the whole MonsterVerse stuff that they're doing with him and King Kong. Just don't watch the one from the 90s with Matthew Broderick. that is painful. We watched that again not long ago, and I'm like, this is a bad film.
Yeah, that new one you mentioned was like -0 or whatever.
-1.
That's -1. I think that was getting pretty fantastic reviews, right?
Yeah. It won the Oscar for best effects, and it's done on like a really small budget for what is a blockbuster film.
Oh, okay, cool. Maybe I'll have to see if that's on streaming at some point.
Yeah, it's Netflix over here in the UK.
Okay.
Don't know about the US.
Usually stuff's the same. I mean, there's sometimes where licensing's different, but generally speaking, you'll usually find it on the same platform. So I'll check there first. Nice. And Illya, what have you been up to? Any current interest on your side?
Well, I think that the biggest thing is I finally managed to trade in my Triumph Bobber Bonneville for a Speedmaster, which is a similar model, but the Speedmaster has an additional seat for a pillion, some forward foot controls, and a slightly different beach bar, so a little bit more comfortable. So yeah, that's been great, and me and my son have had a great time going on little trips. I've been taking him to school on it. So yeah, that's been quite a nice thing to bond with him over, and also just have the flexibility of having someone on the back of the bike. So yeah, not as greedy ride as it once was. So yeah, that's been kind of the main thing.
And is it like a different size bike, or is it just like the way it's configured?
It's pretty much the same bike apart from the pillion, the seat. So yeah, same engine. It's still 1200cc. I think in the States it was called actually Triumph America, but here it's called Speedmaster. So yeah, very similar. And I managed to find one up north actually, and yeah, just did a part exchange for it. But yeah, it's in great nick, much better condition than mine was. As I ride pretty much all year round in all weather conditions, and this one looked like it was just gone out in sunny days. So all the chrome is still clean, and yeah, in much better condition. So yeah, I think I lucked out finding something like that.
Nice. Yeah, when you said the pillion, is that kind of big, kind of archy metal?
Pillion just means a back seat, so I can take a passenger. Pillion just means passenger, yeah. So.
Okay, right. I wonder if they would have called it the Triumph Yank instead over there originally.
Perhaps. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
But yeah, that's been a nice addition, and it's something I've been thinking about for about a year. So yeah, managed to finally kind of go ahead and do it. So yeah, it's a nice thing to have ticked off for the year.
Yeah, I was walking around San Francisco the other day, and I saw a vintage like Ducati Monster, black. And it was back when they used to have like the big white Ducati printed on the side of the oil can, and kind of like a bit of like a 80s or 90s kind of aesthetic to the bike shape. And it's like, man, one of those and like a 650 or something would be so fun. But I don't know. I'm not sure if I'll ever get into motorcycles. But if I was, that would definitely be where I'd want to start.
That would be the one. That would be the one.
I think so. I've always loved monsters.
And am I right that you've registered yourself for a car?
Kinda. I basically put $100 down on a Rivian, so it's like just to hold a spot in the queue. But they won't be going into production until like 2026.
Okay.
Just because they're like re-gearing their factory up. But it's like basically it's like the big Rivians, which I'm not sure if you ever see if those have made it across the pond much, but like all electric SUV, but it's a small one, so it's kind of big for the UK, but small for over here.
Yeah.
Maybe the size of like a Toyota RAV4 or something like that, or maybe like not too similar from like Andy's Juke, like kind of in that sort of ballpark size.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty cool. Like with the battery configurations you can get with it, you can get one that gets like over 300 to 350 mile range, but still can go from 0 to 60 miles an hour in under 3 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, when you so I've test driven the big one just to kind of see what it was like. But I gotta save up some money first. So I'm glad it's a bit of a ways out, because like buying furniture and kind of like sort of organizing a new home is quite expensive. So I definitely don't need to rush out and buy a car.
So it looks like Rivian, the first thing they're going to release over here is going to be the R2, but that's not until 2027.
Yeah, okay, so that's the one I put the money down on, is the R2, which is the smaller version. And they also introduced this really cool model called the R3X, which is like an even smaller format, kind of rally car design. It's like a little like hatchback on it and like very small trunk. It would be great for like someone in London size-wise. And that looks super rad. And I saw the prototype in person. They like did like a little road trip, but that one's also like another year or two out past that, like 2027 plus. So I'm not sure if I'd be able to wait that long, but maybe.
Because Rivian were the guys who I don't know if you ever saw it, but Ewan McGregor did a Long Way Up show.
Yep.
And they were involved, weren't they? And they helped build some of the battery stations for the it was the Harleys, wasn't it?
Electric Harleys, yeah.
It was electric Harleys that they were using in that show, but they also had, I think their team were using the Rivian. Interesting.
And that was literally like their prototypes number 1 and 2, like their very first vehicles. Yeah. It's a cool company.
It seems to be, yeah. And is the network in the States now like all geared up for charging?
Yeah, it's actually really good, because like basically Tesla built out the majority of the network kind of cross country.
Okay.
And they sort of kitted it out so that you could pretty much do a road trip on any of like the major US highways and like have decent charging stations. And then like within like California specifically, it's like the charging network's incredible. And there's also such high tax on gasoline that the state government's basically saying like, you should all go buy electric cars and like not buy gasoline. Like the other day, it was like $6 a gallon for 90, whatever the like lowest grade of gasoline is, and that's that's high for America, but obviously still cheap compared to the cost per liter.
Yeah, I think we're at about £1.40 a litre at the moment.
It's what, 4 liters to a gallon roughly, is that right?
Let's see. I'll tell you now. No. Yeah, you're looking at about just shy of, it's like 0.22. So yeah, about 4 liters to a gallon.
Yes, that's a little bit over $8 a gallon.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, not crazy expensive compared to California, but definitely, a good third on top of the prices here.
Yeah.
But man, everyone's driving electric here. It's crazy. And also, side aside, I rode in a Waymo the other day for the first time, which is those autonomous cars that Google is putting out. So they bought a company, and they're really interesting. They're like these Jaguar F-types with like huge camera modules on all four corners of the car and like a big like sensor system on the top. And they're really incredible. It's like you just literally, one pulls up, you get in the back seat, and like it talks to you and explains how it's going to work. And then once you buckle up, it basically just starts driving, and it's like it's steering itself, and you can look at all of the like computer vision to know like what's around the car and what it senses. And it's really interesting, and it feels pretty safe too. It doesn't feel at all sketchy. But yeah, it's kind of the future, which is pretty cool. It's definitely surreal. But
that must be so weird.
It is. Yeah. It's definitely weird. I guess speaking of the future, I might go ahead and mention two quick current interests. So one is I just watched a TV show called Scavenger's Reign on Netflix. It was originally an HBO Max production, but they like canceled it after one season. And some of the folks at Netflix saw it and were like, "Oh my God, this show is amazing. We got to buy the rights to it." And I guess they're intending to do additional seasons, but obviously like that'll be somewhat contingent on how much people watch it. But a super, super amazing show. It's basically like there's this galaxy ship flying or somewhere, and it gets separated from the fleet of all the other galaxy ships, and it ends up accidentally sort of like almost like crash landing into orbit of this alien planet. And a bunch of folks on the ship, before it blows up, eject and are sort of like sent down to different parts of the planet in kind of like space marine pod type things. And then they're kind of basically trying to survive on this alien planet where pretty much everything is about to kill you. Alien plants, alien bugs, animals, you name it. It's just everything's deadly. And it kind of shows their different stories, and lo and behold, the galaxy ship doesn't blow up, but just gets stuck in orbit. And so they're all kind of trying to figure out like how they can get back up to the ship and see if they can use the escape vessel to get off the planet. But even like the first like 10, 15 minutes, like something happens where you're just kind of like, holy shit, man, this show is going to be like nonstop chaos throughout the whole duration, like with everyone about to die at every single turn of their adventure. It's like there's always something out to kill them. And in terms of like style, it's kind of inspired a lot by like Miyazaki films, so like kind of that Studio Ghibli sort of whimsy, but also a bit of like Mobius and kind of Drouillet heavy metal kind of science fiction vibes, particularly a book called The World of Edina, or Le Monde Edina, really I think was a big inspiration. And then also kind of some other sort of like surrealist sci-fi stuff. But I think it's probably the best TV show I've seen this year, maybe even better than Fallout.
I've watched a couple of episodes so far. It's been an interesting, quite psychedelic experience. But I think I'm episode 3. I've actually been watching it with my son as well. So quite quite trippy.
It'll definitely get it gets pretty graphic at some points. Kind of toward the end of the season, there's like one particular bad thing that happens to someone. You're just kind of like, that creeped me the F out. So be warned around like episode 9 or something. It gets pretty creepy. But I don't know. Dante's probably like old enough to handle it, I guess.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. I guess maybe one other quick. Oh, go ahead.
No, I said thanks for the heads up.
Yeah. Maybe one other quick current interest for me is I've got my first grown-up watch. If it doesn't blur it.
It's blurring it. There we go. Yeah, so I got a Timex. It's a collaboration with a knife maker called James brand, and it's fully automatic. So I forgot the name of the Japanese movement, but it's got the like really famous, everyone kind of uses it, Japanese automatic movement in it. And
it's a true GMT watch, so it's got like the internal and external 24-hour rings, and 100% titanium. So it's kind of fun to have a serious watch for the first time ever.
Welcome to the club, mate.
I'm definitely like, as cool as watches are, I definitely am kind of like, I only probably need one or two. I don't see myself becoming a collector of watches.
That's what they all say.
Yeah, that's exactly what they all say.
I don't know. I
Like, oh, I really like that one. Oh, it's slightly different to this one I've got. And I've got a dive watch. Oh, now I need a field watch. Oh, I should probably get a dress watch for a really nice occasion.
That's like when you first get your pair of jeans and you say, that's it, I'm only going to have one.
Yeah, or boots.
It's like one indigo, one black, right? It's all I need.
Yeah.
That's how it starts, and then I need the red wine weft and kakashibu, double kakashibu.
Yeah, I saw actually that Breitling was opening a shop in San Francisco, which is pretty weird as well, because like everyone seems to be leaving San Francisco retail wise, but apparently they're opening a shop downtown. So at some point, maybe I'll have to go take a look and check it out. Yeah,
Breitling's cool. Got a lot.
Oh, Breitling, sorry.
Yeah,
Breitling. Yeah.
Sketchy dudes wear Breitlings.
all the villains.
Yeah, there's a really good there's a really good not a podcast, but it's a blog and an Instagram channel called Watches of Espionage that talks about how watches have been used throughout kind of the years in, intelligence gathering operations and clandestine stuff, and within geopolitics, and how different watches it can be symbolize different things. Like at the moment, an interesting one is Putin has always been seen wearing blank panes, 50,000s, but since the kind of the war with the Ukraine, and as it stepped up, he's now switched to Russian only brands as like a way of showing that he's a man of the people. But yeah, every Breitlings have got a massive kind of history with within that kind of world, and yeah, quite a few colourful individuals have had them on their wrists and had them made especially for their organisations and stuff. So it's very interesting stuff to read.
Probably, I'm guessing you might be implying with appropriated religious symbols from Hinduism that were ended up being used for fascist purposes or something like that.
No, not at all. Breitling were very popular within the US. I think it was within like the US intelligence community, and they did lots of watches for like special units and stuff like that. I think the sketchiest that I know I can think of is Eric Prince, the dude behind Blackwater. Is it Eric Prince? So Blackwater, the contractors that were kind of quite infamous in Iraq, and to the point that Breitling created a watch specifically for them that you can still buy, that's got like a built-in sensor. So there's a little kind of pack at the bottom, and you unscrew it and it pulls out an antenna, and basically it chimes into a signal that's for like international, basically like emergencies, and you put up, and basically it's like shit's hit the fan, and you open that and basically it sets it off so people know where you are and they can find you to extract you.
Are they going to say that it was like a sensor to find like oil reserves, so you can walk around the Middle East and be like, where's the oil?
It's like a very small dowsing rod. Oh, your little stick. Oh, I found it. No, yeah, you can still get them. They're obscenely priced. They're like 13K a pop.
Is it a German company?
Nah, I think it's American.
Okay. It's my joke about like Nazi insignia. It doesn't make sense. I assumed it was German for some reason.
Watch us get kicked off YouTube for this.
As I said, I'm new to this whole watch thing. Yeah, maybe I'll edit out some of that stuff. Cool. You guys have any other current interests you want to cover?
No, I
Okay.
can think of.
Cool. So should we jump into the discussion topic?
Yeah.
All right.
Let's go for it.
Let's talk engineer boots. Awesome. Maybe to kick it off, let's discuss why engineer boots. Like, what's the appeal of these guys, and why do we have interest in wearing them?
Peer pressure.
That's actually why I got my first pair. I was like, everyone else is rocking them, so I guess I should too.
Yeah, I think I was probably the same. I was
It's like the starter pack, isn't it? It's like the starter pack of being cool.
Well, it's funny because Peter123Z whatever, who's one of our listeners, was asking about like why the rise of engineer boots at the moment. And I guess maybe that's the answer. We're all just buying them because everyone else is saying you need to own a pair.
I don't think there's a rise at the moment. I think it's something that comes in and out of focus in these kind of groups every so often. And right now it might seem like engineer boots are, on this high, but I think boots are just on a high right now in general. I think there's a big bubble that's going on right now. So especially like with Indonesian boot makers and the amount of independent boot makers at the moment, you are just seeing lots of different boots out there in the marketplace. And obviously engineer boots are one of those classic styles that are always being referenced and are just part of the culture as much as a pair of 501s are. So if you look at the 1950 movies and cultural references, photography from that era, you will see those points. So I think that's why. And obviously within the scene, there's a big hype around engineer boots, especially from brands like Roll Club, Brass Tokyo, Clinch, John Lofgren, obviously, and all the independent makers, as well as the classic brands like Chippewa and Wesco, who have been making boots since the late 40s, early 50s. So I think that's my kind of viewpoint on it.
Yeah, because Chippewa and Wesco were basically like the first two companies to make them, right?
Yes. In America, I'm sure there would have been maybe some independent brands that we don't hear about, but I think out of the known brands and who are still around, they would have been the original ones.
Interestingly, I grew up around cowboy boots, obviously in Texas, and like kind of always remember the sort of like cowboy cool. And you had the was it the Cuban heel? Is that what you call it on a cowboy boot, where it's like the angled heel? That plus like the really cool kind of pointy toe box, especially like a snip toe cowboy boot, which is kind of like the front of the boot comes to like almost like a triangle, and you have like a little snip on the end of the toe. Like those look really cool. And I remember seeing a lot of kind of like rock and roll dudes in Texas who would have like old bleached out, beat up Levi's, some cool cowboy boots, and like a black t-shirt or like a white t-shirt or something. Is a very kind of like rock and roll cowboy look. And so I remember growing up, like that was really a thing. I don't think I ever really remember seeing engineer boots growing up. And maybe only really kind of discovered them as a style when part of this community, and like the fact that, like vintage engineer boots or like, Jake almost vintage style, or different folks were like posting about them a lot. And it's like, oh, okay, this is some kind of boot type that like it exists and is cool, but I've never seen these before. And And I think it almost kind of like really just boils down to like the aesthetic of like the strap and the buckle, along with like the woodsman heel, that like those two things are kind of like really what make the boot. Because if you like kind of cover from here up, that could be a cowboy boot, it could be a Chelsea, it could be like even like a pair of like Doc Martens or something slip on. So it's almost like that woodsman heel and the buckle are kind of almost what make it something special, maybe.
I think that those are definitely defining parts of it. And obviously there were engineer boots are inspired by old riding boots from the UK and from Europe, and cavalry boots as well. So those kind of really inform the engineer boots aesthetic wise, and obviously the buckle and the woodsman heel kind of define it as its own thing. But yeah, I think you are right. Like visually, it definitely could be one of those styles.
Yeah, and I guess that's like the famous James Dean ones, right? Where it's sort of like some kind of weird hybrid between a cowboy boot, like an equestrian boot, and then like an engineer or something like that he had made, and this is kind of like unique style. But yeah, it's interesting how almost every boot aesthetic can also be traced back to something from like British history. Yeah, what would have happened if the Brits had never actually made some of the boot styles we have today? Where might we be? What might we be wearing?
Moccasins.
Yeah. So I guess kind of maybe, so you're talking a little bit about the aesthetic of engineer boots. What kind of specifics do you guys like about them, either in general or on like a specific style, like a specific model? Like what kind of sticks out in your mind around engineer boots? Like what gets you guys jazzed up about them?
I mean, I only have one pair, and for me, it was the leather makeup for the pair I own. So I have the Wesco collaboration with Standard and Strange, the knuckle dragger that they did, and I really loved the olive wax flesh that they used, and it was seeing an image of it was a photo of, if I've already mentioned him, but John, Vintage Engineer Boots, his pair were absolutely battered, and they'd gone from like a really dark olive to around like the toe caps and on the heel, or like not toe caps but the toes and on the heel where they'd kind of had the most wear. They'd gone an almost like avocado green, like the inside, like the avocado flesh, like really kind of stood out, and I just found that fascinating. And I've been against, when I first saw it, I was against engineer boots. I didn't like them. I didn't think they were for me. Then yeah, it was just one of the things that just every time I saw it, it's like, that's awesome. That looks so cool. And then slowly dug into it more and more and more. And then when they did one of their orders for them, because they're not MTO. Well, they are MTO. They're not bespoke or anything like that. You just spoke to the guys at Standard and Strange, and they helped you pick a size. It was just like, yeah, fuck it, I'm gonna go for it. And yeah, really glad I did. I do look at other pairs every so often now, but I think at the moment I'm happy with just one pair. But it was the makeup for me, the leather.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now on like an old Heddles article.
Mm-hmm.
And the olive is like almost looks black until it starts to patina.
So mine are black. What I found is, because like as people who follow him, like John, he treats his boots. He puts every pair of boots he's got through the absolute ringer, and they get battered. So, and he does a lot of manual labor, whereas I don't. So mine haven't got that. What I have noticed is where the kind of the wax and the leather started to kind of flake and stuff. Instead, I'm seeing the actual like the original color of the rough out leather appear in certain points, which is quite nice.
That's cool. And are those based on the West Coast Mr. Lou fit and pattern? Like, is it basically like a custom version of a Mr. Lou?
I think it's quite similar, and I think I think Mr. Lou. Yeah, I think they're both the same cut and they're like the pattern, but they are both based on another one of their patterns. So I think Mr. Lou started to appear. I thought Mr. Lou's appeared after Knuckle Draggers.
Oh, maybe
Might
so.
be wrong, but yeah.
I mean, the main thing I know about the Mr. Lou that like is kind of like its standout feature is apparently it's got a slimmer shaft, more like a cowboy boot shaft. So it's easier to fit it under more pairs of jeans. Whereas like if you compare it to a Lofgren's got like a bigger
Let's check
upper, but the Mr. Lou's kind of like a restrained, narrower upper.
Yeah. They did make another pair, like just before they stopped doing the collaboration. They did release a more slimmed down version as well of the Knuckle Dragger that had a different name. I'm just seeing if there is anything that I can find to tell you. But
yeah, that's probably the Mr. Lou pattern, that kind of more slimmed down version. Because it's like I know they do like more than one engineer shape.
Yeah.
And I think that's the Mr. Lou shape, and they've got, I forgot what they call their standard engineer shape. Okay. And Illya, what's the kind of standout for you aesthetic wise with engineers?
Well, I think I'll just cycle back a little bit and to an earlier question about why did we get into engineer boots, and I think John Vintage Engineer Boots has a lot to answer for. I think he was definitely one of the guys that was putting articles up, doing Q&As, always open to answer questions. And when I kind of decided to go for my first pair, John was very helpful in terms of sizing, what I should look out for. And at that time, I decided to go for the John Lofgren natural Chromexel pair, with the knowledge that the leather's going to change, is going to go through that evolution, and get more brown, and so for me, that was a really kind of exciting part of it. But also reading about the research that John Lofgren had gone through in getting his pairs out was really inspiring, because he spent lots and lots of time researching different aspects of engineer boots, and you can see that now other boot makers are either imitating his boot or the Brass Tokyo ones, and for good reasons. I think what John Lofgren does really nicely is it's a nice balanced shape. It's not too bulbous. It's not too slim.
Yeah.
It's a good all rounder, and it references the historical boots really well, but it has its own kind of modern twist, like the storm welt, and things like that. But overall, yeah, I wasn't like, I need to have a thin, a very slim last, or I need to have something like really huge. I think for me, it was the aesthetics of it, the leather, that appealed to me.
Yeah, definitely. I'm kind of in the same boat with you there, that there's like something about a really worn in pair that's got some like beautiful kind of wrinkles in it, and like the up curved worn toe. I guess it's the same reason that any boot we like looks cool. Yeah. I was actually so I was in Seattle recently, and I popped by a shop that sold whites, and I was trying on some of their like cruisers and semi-dress. And I kind of realized that like the lower of that boot is kind of the same as an engineer. like similar last shape, similar toe box, same woodsman heel. And so I kind of realized that like there's a particular look, like a kind of a Pacific Northwest look that you can get with an engineer boot, but you can also get with a boot that's got laces, either like the lace to toe or just like a standard lace up boot. And with a pair of like more relaxed fit jeans, you're going to be able to pull off that aesthetic either way. So it's almost like you don't have to have engineer boots to have that Pacific Northwest look. But any boot that's kind of got that nice woodsman heel and a similar last shape will do it. But I think something that I like about the engineers is also maybe part of why I don't like them at the same time, like that kind of, the buckle and the strap and the kind of cleanness of it. And there aren't any laces. It's like more refined, more simple, and kind of pared down is also its headache in that, since you don't have laces, you can't really get that glove fit between the heel and the instep. And so I'm still kind of on the fence as to whether I've even found a pair that works for me or not. And maybe I'm kind of transitioning us to sizing and fit without realizing it, but maybe there you go. So what I found was with the Lofgrens, like I've had two pairs. I've got the black Chromexel in a 11. Now I'm probably like an 11.5 on the Brannick for my right foot. And I had the 10.5 in the black Shinky Horsebutt. And both of them haven't quite worked for me for different reasons. So with the 11, the like between this instep and my heel is probably like a bit too wide or too long between these 2 points. And so like my foot kind of slides back and forth a little bit and I get like some heel slip and stuff. But I guess with enough time when the toe box kind of curves and kind of comes up more, maybe they'll eventually fit amazing. But I also realized with the Chromexel ones that this strap is straight up aesthetic only, because Chromexel stretches so much. There's no way it's actually going to help cinch this boot down. It'll just stretch out, right? So it's kind of a bit pointless. And then on the Shinky ones, which are half size smaller, because I was like, oh, maybe that'll fit better. On those ones, they were better here, but like a little bit too tight in the toe box. So I almost want to find a different brand that's got a similar look and feel, but like with a smaller instep, more like something like that, that'll fit better. So I don't know. So far I've had trouble with sizing them, even if I go by their advice.
Yeah, I think depending on the brand, you'll have a different fit, because obviously different loss and how they're made. One thing I would say is that like on my Lofgren pair that I had, similar to you, if I cinched it too much, it would almost like create a gathering of leather on the boot itself, and it wouldn't feel comfortable. Now you can obviously make a new hole kind of in between, obviously damaging the original design, and depending on how you feel about those kind of things. And yes, it will stretch a little bit, but if you do that, it can help. But yeah, what I found with the Lofgrens is that my foot would slip down into the toe box, and it wasn't being held by that strap. So I would get that kind of the slip, as you mentioned, even though the sizing felt right for me. I just had that.
Yeah, that's kind of the same thing with my 10.5. It's like it held my arch in place in my instep. So it's like, okay, great. 10.5s work well for me. But then it was just a little bit like kind of squeezing me on the side of the toe box. And because they were horse butt, which basically includes the shell cordovan inside in parts of it, it's like those suckers are not going to stretch. So I ended up having to sell them on. But yeah, I definitely want to try and find another pair that may fit better. I think the next one I might try is there's some Mr. Lou's going to Franklin and Poe soon that are like all blacked out. And as far as I can tell, it looks like it's horse butt, not Chromexel, which would be a big plus if that's the case. So, and I think those are like half size down from Brannick, so I'd probably try an 11 as well. But again, I don't know if they'll work, because I know they're also on the narrower side. So we'll see. Maybe try those out, and then at some point, if I ever make it to Japan later this year, which I hope to, I was looking at the Attractions. They've got a model called the Pioneer, which is a black core horse butt, so not T-core. So it's like all the way dyed through black with like black buckle and everything. So it's basically like the perfect murdered out engineer boot. Standard and Strange used to sell them, but they don't have them anymore, I don't think. So it'd be like I'd have to go to Japan to get. Well, either wait till they get them back or get them from Japan.
Well, what about David? You are in San Francisco now. You're very close to Roll Club. That would be a good option. A good option for you to get something, get fitted for repair, go through the options, and yeah.
Maybe, although I'm not actually that picky about what I mean. Obviously, like fitting my foot is huge because that way you're not having to sell them on. But like aesthetic wise, I'd be perfectly happy with like a ready to wear pair. But yeah, I guess if I'm down in LA again soon, visit Brian Roll Club and see Brian the Bootmaker and see what he's got. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but that's actually a good shout. I know when I was in LA for inspiration, Jean Jacket John, he had a pair of Roll Club Engineers, and they look pretty sweet.
Yeah, because I think he has several different lasts which he's used. So and I'm sure you could work with him in terms of getting that fit right, getting all those kind of bits dialed in.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely something worth to consider.
Yeah, I think criteria wise, if I can find a pair that's like unstructured toe, plus black midsole, insole, that also with the black leather that's not a T-core leather, so it'll stay black.
Yeah.
That would be the kind of the grail, because like even with these guys, it's Chromexal, so like the brown's eventually going to start to come through, which I usually polish over with black.
Yeah.
And it's got the brown midsole and stuff. So these guys aren't exactly what I want, but it's like, well, it's an entry point to try them out and see and learn more about them. And depending on how they break in over time, I'll either keep them or sell them.
Andy, how do you find the fit on the West Coast?
Yeah, it's a little bit of heel slip. I mean, I haven't worn them for ages. I think I put them on for the first time in about 6 months on Friday. And yeah, there is a little bit of heel slip, but I never found my toes like being jammed down into the toe box. It's just a bit of slip as I move. But they've been great out of the box. I think that one of the issues I sometimes find with woodsman heels in general, though I get this with my donkey punches as well, is that maybe it's just the way I naturally stand, but it makes me put a lot more pressure on the balls of my feet as opposed to it being spread equally out and getting some weight on the heels. So, which is something which can be a problem if I'm, walking any kind of distance.
Well, it makes sense though, right? Because like that's about an inch, and that's 2.5 inches. So, like naturally, it's almost like the man version of wearing heels or something.
Yeah,
it's like pushing down your weight towards the bottom of the front of the shoe.
I suppose it's trying to find a stance that allows you to distribute that weight a little bit better without standing like a knob, to put it bluntly, because it kind of shifts your center of balance, center of gravity ever so slightly.
Well, that's why you see those rockabilly dudes in Tokyo always like down on the ground and kind of like dancing their jigs and stuff. They're just trying to relieve some pressure off the balls of their feet. Scuffing up their engineers. That's what the real rockabilly culture is about. One thing I also say too, what was I gonna say? It was about the slip. So my mental model, which let me know if you guys see it the same way or not, is like lateral slip. So like from front to back is not great because you want the instep to like kind of hug your instep and kind of keep your foot in the right place. So for example, your toes aren't hitting the end of the toe box. And so a good fit would hold that in place. But I'm guessing vertical slip is natural because as your foot's moving, nothing's going to ever, I mean, the sole of the shoe is sufficiently strong that it's necessarily not going to flex as easy as your foot. So it seems like if you're slipping forward to back, that's a bad thing. If your foot's kind of sliding up a bit in the rear, up and down, that's, I guess, natural. Is that kind of how you guys see it?
I would say so. Yeah, you don't want to be slipping. Yeah.
As long as it's not causing.
Back and forth with it.
Yeah, as long as it's not causing any kind of rub.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that is always a problem with a boot. If the heel of your foot is sliding up and down for too much, you then start to get quite, you get increased risk for blisters and stuff like that.
Ideally, what you want in the boot to suit your foot is a curve down, kind of on the vamp, that's going to support and follow the line of your foot to keep it in place, and then the heel cup to cup your ankle, so then it doesn't slide up and down. Obviously, those two things work together to hold your foot in place. But because it's an engineer boot and you don't have laces, it's hard to find that combination that complements your foot, because everyone has a different shape. So it's about going out there, trying the different styles and seeing what is going to work best for you. And that's kind of what I found with the clinchers, is that it supports my foot really nicely. So I don't get much heel slip, and I don't feel like my foot is being pushed down into the toe box like it was with the Lofgrens. Yeah, I don't feel like I have that, like I'm constantly on heels. So yeah, I think it's that kind of thing that what you're looking for. And you can only do that by trying several different makers. Like I found the tractions didn't work for me. I found I was like in between sizes. My foot was either slipping back and forth, or it was just too tight. I couldn't find that kind of that perfect shape. So yeah, I would say definitely go out, and if you can, try different things. Like I remember letting Andy try the Lofgren boot, and he couldn't even get the foot in.
Yeah.
Yeah, because and that's quite a common problem for people, is getting your foot into an engineer boot. And you have this kind of the trick with putting a plastic shopping bag on your foot, slipping in, and then ripping a hole through it, taking it off, and for the first few times. But yeah, some people have their foot is just that wide, or that big, have a big arch. They just can't slide it in.
I remember being like petrified that I was going to tear your boots in half. I was trying that hard to get my foot in one of them.
You'd be more scared. You probably couldn't get your foot out. That's probably the it's like one of the things, like when you first get your boots, engineer boots, and you do manage to put them on. If you manage to put them on, taking them off can be like a right pain.
On that note, the plastic bag trick, there's actually, I think, or my opinion, an easier version of the same thing, where you still use the plastic bag, but you basically line it, like you lay it inside the boot, almost like it's a big giant shoehorn. So you're kind of like putting the plastic bag like in the shoe, and your foot will slide in just as easily because you still have the plastic to slide in without having to actually like put your foot inside the bag. It's like the bag cups your foot as opposed to like being inside of it, and then you just go and just like pull up the back.
Could be, but it doesn't. It might not help your foot to slide in from the.
Well, here's the thing for me. So these guys are 11, right? As I mentioned, and the horse butt ones I had were 10.5, so half size smaller. The horse butt ones I could slide on with almost no aid whatsoever. I could just literally just pull them and they'd come right on. And the reason being is like this part of the horse hide, like the rear cup in this section, has cordovan in it. So it's like really freaking stiff. And the finish on the horse hide on the inside, that shinky horse hide, is really smooth, almost suede-like finish. Whereas like with Chromexel, it's a lot more kind of fibrous and like textured on the inside, and there's like no real structural integrity there. So it's like, you know, kind of all squashy and stuff. So even though these are half size bigger, these guys in Chromexel are way, way harder for me to get on than the other ones were in the horse butt, just because there was so much more structural integrity. So I'd almost go as far to say is like, if I buy additional engineer boots in the future and maybe end up selling these guys on, like, I don't think I would buy Chromexel again. I would want to have like Shinky or another high-end horse butt that's got a real smooth interior and more structural integrity to it.
I guess also is like Chromexel cowhide leather, probably a little bit thicker than horse butt, some degree.
I mean, they're both full grain. Obviously,
no, but just in terms of thickness of the leather.
I'm not sure actually.
No,
I'm not sure actually.
I'm making it. I'm not making.
Yeah. I mean, just thinking about it, I think the horse butt was a thicker piece of leather.
Yeah.
Okay. And a half size smaller. So in theory, they should have been a lot harder to put on. But I think it was just the because also, for example, like these guys, and I've worn them like maybe 15 times, they're starting to get the slouch, right? Whereas the horse hide, I think I wore them 15 times before I sold them. They were still like perfectly straight up and down. It's like it holds their shape better, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
For better or for worse. I mean, some people like that kind of slouchy, like, you know, poopy look, but I definitely liked the nice and erect boot.
You like the shaft to be nice and erect.
Yes.
Saying David.
Yeah, it needs to stand up and do its job.
That's it.
Maybe a bit about touching base on the kind of U.S. versus Japanese brands perspective. What are y'all's thoughts on sort of U.S. versus Japanese boots?
I mean, I've got a US pair. They are built like tanks. They're not the most refined pair of boots. You know, and I think a number of people have touched on this with kind of the Pacific Northwest brands. Their finishing isn't, you know, perfect, and it can be a bit rough around the edges, but you know the boot is going to last you, you know, decades. It's not gonna fail you. It's just not going to look, you know, perfect ever, and that's fine. I mean, yeah, you see the odd kind of, the leather might not be cut perfectly in one point, you know, it might not be perfectly curved. It might have a bit of an angle at a couple of areas, or, you know, some of the stitching might not be, you know, as tight as you would expect to see off some of the Japanese brands. But, you know, I think the PNW brands are known for, you know, their sturdiness, and that's kind of why people go that way.
Yeah, I remember seeing a pair of white semi-dress in a shop in Austin like 10 years or so, give or take, maybe less, maybe 5 years, let's say. But it's a shop that's no longer there, that's making custom jeans. Yeah, the first time I picked up a pair of whites, I was just like, holy shit, man, these are like double Red Wings. Yeah. It's like they're just like so insanely hardcore build wise. Yeah, I guess with the US brands, you're getting that kind of tougher, and specifically Pacific Northwest brands, you're getting something mega beefy, where I'm guessing if you bought like a Chippewa or a Red Wing engineer, it's still kind of middle of the road toughness wise, but like it seems like everything in the Pacific Northwest is kind of like double tough.
Yeah.
And then stuff like, I guess the Lofgrens and the other Japanese brands, you're getting a much more refined, but still amazingly crafted boot. So I guess you trade a little bit of durability for kind of like perfection in the makesmanship.
Yeah.
I think it's the finishing, and probably like the clicking, the choices of leather. They're probably a little bit more selective over those kind of detailing. Whereas I think, your whites or your Wescos are gonna just like, okay, this leather looks good, it looks sturdy, let's fucking use it. Let's like put it together, bam, like that's it.
So it's
Um,
the Japanese brands are very much know that they are catering to a very exacting and quite demanding audience who expect to get what they want for what they're paying. Whereas the Pacific Northwest brands, I think, to an extent, have brought the mentality that they have for making their actual kind of work boots across to their heritage line, so to speak, and where it is, they're still more focused on that. Is it going to survive, a forest fire, or a motorcycle wreck, as opposed to, is it, as visual perfection?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'll touch on there as well. And that previously I had, as I mentioned, had a pair in the Shinky Black Horse Butt, and those were a weird kind of combo because that leather, and I think horse butt in general, you get a lot of like scarring and wrinkles and just kind of like, let's call it imperfections for something about the way horses live or their anatomy. Like maybe they're brushing up against stuff with their butts, like fences and trees more than cows do or something. I'm not sure, but for some reason, it's like when you buy like Chromexil, it's pretty much completely smooth, completely consistent. There's like it's very rare to see imperfections in the Chromexil itself. But like in the horse butt, it's like there's a scar here, there's a wrinkle there, there's a slash there. And then you get that kind of weird sort of tortoise shell effect to the leather. So it's kind of interesting that you're like paying a premium for this like perfect made Japanese boot, but you're also paying another premium on top of that for an imperfect leather that's got a bunch of cool character and personality, but it's like not perfect leather, right? Which I thought is kind of an interesting sort of mix. Almost like Japan plus Chromexil, or like a Japan with like a black calf might be like the best sort of like aesthetic look to a pair of boots. But I guess everyone loves the Shinky horse butt, even if it's got a ton of imperfections just because of the way the horses live. And what's y'all's opinion on structured versus unstructured toe box?
I think I prefer an unstructured toe box. When I think of a structured toe box, especially on an engineer, I immediately think of like the brands you mentioned earlier, like the Chippewa and the Red Wing ones, where it's a very bulbous toe. Whereas, like the ones we've got are much more, they're a slimmer toe. It's a sort of kind of a slimmer profile. That just kind of, for me, that I find that more appealing.
Yeah, I've got time for both, depending on what the boot is offering. Might slightly sway towards an unstructured, because it just looks nice after it ages. But still, I've seen some nice classic style engineer boots that just look great, even with the slightly more bulbous toe and more toe spring. So yeah, I'm not too fussy on that part.
Yeah, I definitely like unstructured, only because I've got like weird shaped feet and I struggle with like having wide toes that hit the sides of the shoe. So if I've got like more flexibility around the front kind of narrow taper of the shoe, I'm going to prefer that. So like I think with any boot in general, if I could opt for an unstructured over a structured, I would take it. But I would still wear a shoe with I guess it's called a celastane, which is basically like kind of like a rubbery plastic piece inside the leather, also called a semi-structured toe. I would totally rock that, but I think I would draw the line is like I don't think I'd ever want like a cap toe or like a hard toe where you can like knock on it. It's like don't like that's probably too much
Like
for me.
Like the steel cap engineer boots that a Red Wing does.
Yeah, like the actual like true work toe. It's like I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. Maybe touching a bit on sort of costs and like price point. Like what are y'all's thoughts on like how much you should spend and like what's a good budget and kind of maybe like an entry level pair to look at versus like a grail pair to look at price wise?
Well, I think entry level, you're looking at Chippewas and Red Wings, and I think you're getting some pretty great boots for that price point. I think. If you get something and they fit you well and you like them, there's no reason to go higher. Like it's after that point, you're just kind of that's something that you're nerding out. It's something that you're really into. So I think with those two brands, you're gonna do well. I think.
And are both of those brands still manufacturing engineers? 'Cause I know like Chippewa's kind of downsized over the years. I know Red Wing cut a bunch of styles when COVID hit. Do you know if they're both still making them?
I'm not sure if actually they're making them, but I still see them about in certain stockists. But I think not as much as it was maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've just done a quick glance. I'm just doing a quick glance now. Chippewa engineer boot. I think they do. A few seem to be available, but I think a lot of the stuff I'm seeing is eBay, really.
Yeah. I think one of the other things with Chippewa is they started to outsource their production as well. At a certain point, I can't remember exactly which year, but I think it was around 2015, 2016 when they started to have issues with people stocking them.
Interestingly, it looks like Red Wing don't do them anymore, or at least on their UK website. Yeah, I'm on Red Wing London, and it's got Mocks, Iron Rangers, Blacksmiths, Chuckers, Weekenders, Postmans, Chelsea's Prairies, Willistons. That's it.
Yeah, I remember they interviewed the head of Red Wing Heritage on Stitch Down, like kind of some point during the pandemic, and he basically said that like, yeah, they cut down like, I don't know, half, 3/4, whatever of their production line or their product range, and like only were making the top 25% bestsellers because of I guess like financial risk of making boots that aren't getting put into stores. And I think only recently have they started to kind of reintroduce some of the styles that they paused for a while. But yeah, interestingly, also I'll say too, when I was at Inspiration, there was someone selling vintage engineer boots. Like their entire booth was just engineer boots and just vintage ones. And they had an amazing assortment, like a whole gamut of different styles and aesthetics. And they were, I think, all in the kind of like $100, $150, maybe $200 price range, depending upon, quality and stuff. So it seems like going vintage might be a great place to start as well.
Yeah.
What would you guys pick for like a top end grail pair? And would you go custom or would you go off the shelf?
I think if I was going to go for another pair and I was going to go for something like flash, I would go custom. And it probably would be something like Roll Club if I had the money available to ever do that and the time to, be willing to wait, however, like 18 months or whatever it is for a pair.
Yeah, I think with Roll Club, I think some of the timings have changed a little bit when I spoke to him. I think there was just things which were more readily available, and I think he also started to do drops of boots, so that could be a good time to get it. I think for myself, having had the Lofgrens and enjoying having those pair, I wanted to have, if I was going to go for something, I was like, okay, I'll look for something better than that, and I lucked out with the clinch being available through Standard and Strange, and knowing that if I had any issues, I could easily return them or to sell them on, just because of of the hype around them. So I was happy to spend the money that they were asking for, and for me it worked out because of they suited my foot really well. In terms of going custom, and I think unless you can go to the maker and get your foot fitted properly, you're still gambling. But if you're going custom and from a maker remotely, you might pay all that money and wait 6 months, 8 months, and in the end they might not fit you. So I think it's a tricky one, because you're paying a lot of money to do custom, but you still might not get what you want in the end without any chance to get that back. So I think I would be careful on the custom front, unless you're going to to Brian at Roll Club and visiting him in person and saying, okay, this is what I want. Because tracing your foot and sending it over doesn't mean that a boot is going to fit in the end.
Yeah, I kind of have a similar fear of bespoke, because anything I've gotten that's bespoke in the past.
Well, it's different. It's like bespoke or custom. There's like bespoke is something you're actually visiting someone and they make a boot around your foot.
Does a bespoke boot include the last being made for you as well?
Well, that's the thing, is like, what do you call bespoke? What do you call custom? I think bespoke is when they probably make a last for you. I would say, like a suit. When you go to a tailor and you're getting a bespoke suit, they make it from scratch. If you're doing a made to order, you go to that tailor and they fit you in the jackets that they have in their house styles, and then they make adjustments around that.
Clarifying point then. So in America, we'll say custom to mean bespoke.
Okay.
Just because no one says bespoke over here. But so that for us, those two words mean the same thing. But we would also say made to order if it's like, it's not made custom to me, but I can kind of like pick something, and maybe I can pick a color, pick a detail.
But unless you're visiting that bootmaker, you're not gonna get a custom boot. Bespoke custom boot. You might be able to customize it, but it's not going to be made to your foot shape. Kind of like
weirdly we'll say okay.
Yeah.
We'll also say something weird where we'll say like customized means like I got to change some details, but custom made means like it's bespoke, or like it was made just for me. So there's also a bit of weird ambiguity on the US side for that stuff.
So I just wanted to kind of to clarify that bit. So like with Shogoto, with his boots, you go and get your foot measured, and you go through that process. Or if you're going to some of the Northampton shoemakers where they offer that kind of service, like Edward Green or Trickers or people like that, you're getting something that's going to guarantee to fit you, because during that process you'll have a fitting, and then you say, okay, this is not feeling quite right, or things can still be adjusted.
Oh yeah, and going back to my other point too, which I forgot to close on, was that when I've gotten custom shirts or bespoke shirts, like I've got 2 of them, they fit me exactly, but like when I changed my shape, they weren't really sellable because they were like only going to work on someone who's like 6'2" and quite skinny.
Yes.
So I guess that's the other risk too, where it's like if you get something custom or bespoke, even shoe wise as well, it's just gonna be harder to sell it.
Yep.
All right. Well, maybe to kind of start wrapping things up a bit. Any kind of last thoughts or things you want to throw out there on engineer boot before we close up the discussion?
Well, I think one point would be, maybe we can touch upon this, is what goes well with engineer boots. What kind of styles, and different people are going to have different viewpoints on this, but I think it'd be nice to touch upon that before we finish up.
Yeah, one thing that jumps out in my mind is like a pair of jeans that are like a proper straight cut and maybe even cuffed up a bit or cropped such that they like just hit the top of the boot. There's like a really cool look where you've got, even like back in the day, it would have been like cowboys frontline pressing their jeans to get this like super clean break and it like just hits the top of the boot. I think that looks pretty rad. Or even a wool trouser. You do have like a wool trouser too.
Yeah. How do we feel about tucking jeans into your boots?
That used to be a thing.
In Texas, it's like a real thing for like women to wear cowboy boots with skirts. Yeah. So I think this summer, next time I'm in Austin, I'm gonna like get some crew length socks, my engineer boots, and a pair of like chino Bermuda shorts, and like that's gonna be the thing. Maybe I'll find me some scuba trunk shorts to go with them.
Join us.
That's definitely a look. Yeah.
Walk around my housing development in my knuckle draggers and scuba trunks.
Yeah, they'll drop you off in San Francisco. Be like, oh, you got lost. Bring you back here.
You might get different kind of attention there.
Well, here it's in Texas, it's legal to walk around topless as a woman, and here it's basically legal in San Francisco to walk around just butt ass naked. So maybe I'll just rock some butt naked engineer boots.
Right.
And no one would care because it's that crazy.
And you probably have a bit of space still in the shaft of the boot to put your wallet and your keys. So you'll be all right. Just install like a little loop on the inside for your keys.
Well, there were some engineer boots that would have like little leather pouches on them, like on the boot shaft.
Yeah.
There you go.
Vintage engineer boots. John did a little D pocket, didn't he, on his boots? I remember.
It'd be pretty rad to have a little like guitar pick pocket.
I think yeah. I'm sure people have done that. Knife pockets and things like that. The other thing I've seen quite a few times is sweatpants or tracksuit bottoms with engineer boots. How do we feel about that?
That was a weird phase, wasn't it? That everyone just jumped on. That must have been it. Was that started by Standard and Strange?
Probably by Neil.
Must have been as a joke, and then people just jumped on it and thought it was cool. But that's just like the power of advertising, whether you're taking a piss or not.
Oh man, you guys send this around. I somehow completely missed this trend when it happened.
It's probably a good thing you missed it.
I imagine
it was terrible.
Boots would look pretty cool with some of those like crazy brass not brass, black sign poofy trousers. Like,
when you say poofy trousers, do you mean like
the ones that are like slim on the lower leg, they kind of poof out for the upper leg?
Joggers, like riding trousers.
Yeah,
breeches, joggers and breeches.
Breeches, which would have been which would have been worn with those kind of the
cavalry boots,
the cavalry boots, the riding boots. I'm sure that would probably look better than sweatpants.
That would make me. That makes me think of like the horsey set though. Walking around in your tight riding trousers and your crop jacket, and then your riding boots.
Yeah.
I mean, that is kind of Black Sign's aesthetic. It's like, what if you took like English country pursuits and you like murdered it out and put a skull on it.
Yeah.
That's their like brand design right there.
So niche.
Cool. Well, I guess any other closing thoughts, or should we wrap up here?
No, I'm pretty much there.
Cool.
Buy your engineer boots. Wear them with short shorts. Be a king.
I literally am like gonna like go do a photo shoot later. Not for sure, but with some engineer boots and shorts.
Buster's done it, and he looks heroic when he did it.
Oh man. Cool. Well, on that note, I guess we'll draw episode 35 to a close. So thank you all for listening to us rant in a very uneducated fashion about engineer boots and sharing our non-researched opinions. Hopefully it was interesting. And as always, like us, subscribe us, follow us wherever you can do, and stay tuned for the next episode.
Yeah.
Peace out.
Cool.
Au revoir.
Thanks.